In today's video, I'll speak about my midfielder power rankings, all the way from M1 to M12. So with the criteria for my projected average, basically depends a lot on what they did in the back half of last year, and if anything has changed around them. Some of them might have had a limited preseason, for example, so I'll mark them down for that. And yeah, stuff like that. So we get straight into it. My M1 and equal M1 is Jack Steele. So Jack Steele, I think after round 7 or 8, when Marshall got back into the team, almost around a 135 average, something ridiculous like that. So yeah, he's done really nothing wrong in the preseason. Was kind of cruising in the preseason games. Started trying in the fourth quarter from what I was watching. So he's M1. I think he deserves to be M1. And yeah, perfect captain option every week. The only gripe with him is potentially he has a lot less help in that midfield. So I slightly worry about that. And it seems Marshall's had a few very minor interruptions, but seems fine. So if Marshall were to go down, it probably means Steele's scoring suffers a little bit. But still, I think he deserves to be at a 130 average, given he did 5 points more than that for most of the year last year. And my M2 is Touk Miller. So with Touk, watching him in the preseason, it's quite frightening. It would be quite frightening not owning Touk Miller, I think, this year. So Gold Coast look good, and he has a ruckman in Jared Witts for a change. So possibly gets marked down a little bit if Rao and mostly Rao takes some tackle numbers off him. So I will see how that goes, but yeah, Touk Miller been doing Ironman training in the preseason, just unbelievable work rate like we've never seen. So he's a fantastic starting pick and deserves the M2 spot. So my M3 is Zach Merritt at 128 average. I think given what all the midfielders at the Dogs and the fact that he might start off a half forward flank like he did very briefly at the start of the game in the Amy series, he might not be able to do those 130 to 135 numbers that he could actually do with full mid time, but he'll never get it in that Dogs mids. It might be in the generally somewhere in the 70s, I assume, maybe low 80s, but yeah, I put him at 128. That's what he did last year, and yeah, played pretty much a lot of mid time last year. It did drop at times, the CBAs. I think it did drop from about 80 to low 70s at times. So yeah, that's just the way it is with the Dogs mids. So 128 average, I think that's fair. Yeah, big fan of Mcrae, and he's our vice captain option for the first 2 months, or probably the whole year, really. So, yeah, big fan of Jack Mcrae. M4, I have Clayton Oliver, so just a little bit below these guys, simply because his floor is the lowest. He's prone to not scoring as well as the others at times, and also prone to the tag. And the other guys, I think Steele and Miller don't really have too much of an issue with the tag, especially Miller. Still maybe a little bit, but doesn't really come his way much. And then Jack Mcrae doesn't get tagged because they have Libert and Bont in the team. So Oliver, maybe a few down games here and there. Yeah, have him at 125, having a full preseason, unlike last year. Said he's as fit as he's ever been. Another one where it could be problems not owning him, but you can't have them all, so it's just how it is. So my M5 is actually Darcy Parish. So he's gone up in my ranks. Watching in the preseason, he was racking the ball up at will, and we know that with Clayton Oliver, Oliver, he's prone to the tag, but much more prone, can't deal with it at all, whereas Oliver can sometimes fight through it. So that does mark him down, but I put him at 122 because he went 122 after, I think it was round 3, something like that, because the first 2 rounds they played him half forward. So I don't know if that happens much this year. I know that's been done a little bit in the practice game, but if I win the real stuff, I think they want Parish. He's their best clearance player by a mile. I think they want him in the midfield as much as possible. So very high ceiling, can have those massive games. Almost, I think he had a 190 game last year. I'm just putting him at 122. So it's a hard one to read because I feel like this could go. It could be a lot less, but it wouldn't surprise me at all that if he can do 120 plus. So my M6 is Lockie Neal. I've put him at 120. It's hard because what happened last year, it wasn't only the fact that he was playing through injuries, had a no preseason as well. He actually got tagged, I think, more than anyone, and it was just nothing went his way last year with Lockie Neal. So I have him at 120. I'm not sure he gets back to the heights of the COVID year or his Brownlow year. So I have him at 120. I think that's what he did the year before his Brownlow year. There's potential for him to do more here, but yeah, he looks fully fit. His time on ground is really high, which is really encouraging. some talk he might play a bit, was it wing or a little bit rotate off half forward, stuff like that. I don't see that happening much. They want him in the mid as much as possible. He's their best mid. So yeah, I have him at 120, and yeah, a bit of a hard one because of what happened last year. So we'll do that. My M7 is Marcus Monsenpelli at 117 average. With Marcus, we know that they might experiment with his role a bit more mid-time, but he scores so easily. His contested game's really good. He can take a contested mark here and there, which really bumps his score. And he's a goal-kicking midfielder. He probably kicked 30 to 35 goals this year with ease, maybe even more if he goes forward. So one that I definitely want to get in my team eventually. It's just, he is prone to a tag at times, but he just didn't get tagged at all last year, which is pretty strange. So I think he's probably favourite for the Brownlow or top 2, top 3. So one we definitely want to get in, but maybe we get a bit better of an understanding of his role and his mid-time. It could fluctuate a bit, but regardless, even if he is forward for periods, he will score very well. So he's my M7. M8, I have Tom Mitchell. So I didn't really know where to put Tom Mitchell because he was my M5 for most of the preseason until it came out that he has groin issues. So when that came out, I'm thinking, well, if that is an issue that lingers, or he's way, way, way down, he might not even go 110, 105 with groin issues because they can really derail a player's season. So this is more, I had him at 120. I actually had him 125, I think, for a while. But given new coach, I probably should have marked him down a little bit. But then the groin news, I had him 115, so I've marked him down a fair bit for that. But we know he went almost 130 in the back half of last year because he finally got a clean run at it. He hasn't had a full preseason until this year. And then now he has that little niggle. So one where he's just M8 for now, but you don't start Tom Mitchell. You just wait and see how his health is, and then we'll grab him because he'll be a great pick when fully fit. M9, Zach Merritt, same as last year and the year before, 115. Doesn't win enough contested ball to really push that number up, so maybe rotates off halfback, but he looked really good in the preseason. So 115, same old with Zach Merritt. Not sure anything changes there. M10 is Sam Walsh at 115 as well. It's another one. These guys are all 115 actually, so you can see you probably want a midfielder that goes 115 this year. So with Walsh coming back from the syndesmosis, it might hurt his output a little bit. Some players just don't go back to the best. Sometimes they have complications, so not exactly sure, but sounds like it's tracking really well. And yeah, maybe he starts a little bit slower. Maybe he gets some wing rotations, which he scored fine in 2020. I think it would make sense to put him on, still predominantly on ball, but rotate on a wing a bit more so than last year. But maybe I could be wrong there. So I have him at 115. We know he can push higher than that, but just given the injury and now like a preseason, maybe starts a bit slow. My M11 is Rory Laird. So obviously injured right now, but we know he can score really well. I think in the back half he went 120 plus. So it looks like they're putting Keys at half forward, and I don't know if that's just a preseason thing or if that's a real thing for the actual regular season. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there, but I think Laird deserves to be in the top 12. I think he's a solid upgrade target. I think there's others I want before Laird at this stage, but broken hand, that shouldn't really hinder him. I think it's not as bad as a syndesmosis injury. So Laird I have 115, and yeah, see how he goes pretty much. And then my M12 is Josh Kelly at 115, and he can push higher than this because he's playing inside mid. I don't know if that continues in the preseason, in the actual regular season. But yeah, we know Josh Kelly could probably push 120 to be honest, but as we know, things happen. Look, if I had to guess his average, I think 122 playing inside mid. However, we know with Josh Kelly, things go wrong. It's a little bit of a soft tissue complaint here. Rolled his ankle 4 times last year. I think he's had a concussion game, but that's pretty unlucky anyway. So, yeah, that's factored into the average. So, look, I can't say I want him in my team at all this year, but it's one that could really pay off if he keeps playing inside mid. So that's my top 12. Let me know if I've missed anyone. I did like Andrew Brayshaw, but I saw his time on ground is still not 80%. So I said it's hard to bump him up into this range, but he's one that could get there. A few others that are stiff. I think Cripps could probably push. Probably not 115, just depends on his body. But yeah, fully fit he could, but I doubt that happens throughout the whole year. But you never know. So. That's my top 12. Let me know what you think. And yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.